So now I would like to give a short description of the technical background of this project. This project uses AngularJS as front-end and it uses Django REST framework as backend. Technically, those frameworks can work quite well together, but still they have some small conflicts which needs to be handled and settled in order for them to work perfect with each other. So now let's move on to Django REST Framework. Django REST Framework is a powerful and flexible toolkit that makes it easy for you to create your own API. It provides a really nice graphical representation, allows you to browse through your API. Now I would like to show you my API. So now we can access all the users, a list of users. And a single user has ID, username, first name, and last name, and also it can has hypertext link fields. For example, in this case, I have plans as a hypertext link fields. By accessing this single point, we can access all the plans which belongs to this user. So now we can see this user have 2 plans, and also we can access the plan list. Of course, by accessing single plans, we use plans ID as search field. And and you can see plans contains a hypertext link to its owner, which is the user who created this plan. And now, because Django REST framework is based on REST, so everything change message passing is through JSON object. So model serializer is specialized for you to convert from typical complex Python native object into the JSON representation, and it also can change backward from JSON object to native Python object. So in my project, I have many serializers. I have activity serializer, plan serializer, and a user serializer. And also permissions. Permission needs to be handled very carefully because in this project, everyone can read all the users and everyone can retrieve a list of all the plans and activities and user information, but only the owner of the plan, the owner of the activity, and the owner's information can be updated, created, and deleted by the owner itself, not anyone else. So it has to be handled in a proper way. So a REST Django framework gives you the capability to do that. So in this case, I have its owner or read only or its user or read only for you to just control the permission. And also API views. Actually, API views in Django REST framework works quite familiar with Django forms. It's just take the request object and dispatch the request object into different method, such as get method and the post method. But Django REST framework gives you many ways to handle APIs. They have class-based API and they have method-based API. I have been trying different ways and different APIs as well. For example, for user detail, we're supposed to retrieve and update. We're supposed not to delete any user detail. But for user list, we only can create a new user in the list, but we cannot update. We cannot delete as well. Now I would like to move on to AngularJS. First of all, AngularJS has a really crucial concept called scope. The scope is like a glue between models, controllers, and the views, so on. Because AngularJS provides the double-way data binding, so controller is used to as a bridge between models and views. Every change in the models will be reflected in views, and every single change in views will be reflected in models also. And in my project, I have many controllers too, like post list controller here and a user list controller. They all belongs to different scope, and in order for you to have different operations within the scope. And AngularJS gives you resources. Before, I have been trying to handle all the operations, use lower level operation, but the resource is an upper level abstraction of the HTTP get and post operations. So in this case, I have many resources like user resource and plan resource, and you can abstract different methods into the resource, and every time you need this resource, you just use the dependency injection and inject it into your scope, and then you can use the user resource, and it's a various method. The routing scheme, because Django REST framework is supposed to give you API, so the routing for the API is different to the front end. So the front end and the back end use different routing schemes. We already know how the API works, but in the front, the API, the routing is different. For example, here. So we are now in account page, and now we move to the bodies page. So the routing the routing scheme is different to the API. It's supposed to, I think. Well, for the integration details, there are some small conflicts. For example, in Django template system, they use these double brackets, but in AngularJS, they use these two. So there are many ways to jump through this problem, but I use these blocks. By using these blocks, it's just simply telling Django template system to jump between whatsoever included between those two blocks, and then you can have operation captured by AngularJS. And also form validation. Form validation, it's like, I think the validation needs to be handled both front end and back end, because you will never know what people will post on your API, and and the front end and back end, both of them needs to be validated. And authentication, there might be a need for you to provide authentication in the front end, because a backend is just the API, and it's supposed to now to handle the authentication at the backend. At least I think so. We can use some schemes. We can create a structure at front end to handle the authentication, or we can have extra service like OAuth tool to handle the authentication with a token. That could also work, but I haven't tried that this time. So now my project screencast is over. Thank you for listening.